Hello and welcome back to episode 11 of the Godot Tower Defense tutorial. I can't believe I'm saying that, but welcome back again. In this episode, if you haven't already guessed, we're going to be looking at creating particle systems to create this kind of explosion effect when our enemy dies, runs out of health. This has taken me an eternity, relatively speaking, I guess, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without a very helpful subscriber to the channel. So thank you very much. You know who you are. I won't name you because I wasn't 100% sure if you were happy to be named, but you know who you are. So thank you so much. I would say that, particle systems in Godot, for me at least at the start, is very unintuitive. I come from a Unity background. I quite enjoy particle systems in Unity. I found it to be quite the opposite for Godot. Maybe once now I've got the hang of it, I will start enjoying it. But I think some of the problems, particularly around the fact that you've got quite a limited space to work in for your particle systems, because you're kind of expanding and refolding again the areas that you're interested in, makes it quite difficult to navigate. But we're going to go through it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I've actually done. I will put a link to the documentation from Godot. But I would suggest that, like I say, you take a few hours out of your day and just sit yourself down and play with the particle systems. Follow the tutorial, just try and work out all the different things do, and see what you come up with. It's definitely very, very powerful. You can do a lot with it. If you see some of the images and videos, they show you what can be done. Very, very strong indeed. So the thing is, it's very good, easy to show what it can do. What a little bit more difficult is getting it to do what you want to do, which was in this case create that explosion there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through how I've done it. As always, I will put a link to the source, GitHub source, in the description as well, so you can take the latest code. And of course, I am very happy to receive any feedback on this about how I could have done things better. Ways to improve it, whatever you want to do. I'm very, very happy to receive that. So let's go and have a look at the code and see what I've done to set up this explosion effect. Okay, so I have created two scenes here, one for the explosion itself and one for the smoke. But before I just go into what that is, I've also imported a couple of images here: explosion01, explosion.png, and smoke.png. Okay, so you can see this here, and these have obviously got alpha associated with them. Okay, so these are the two effects that I've got here. This explosion here is kind of going to be the bang that appears, and the smoke's sort of going to scatter around it as it goes. Yeah, so I hope that makes sense. So what I've then done is I've created a couple of scenes. I created an explosion particle scene, and as you can see here, I've created it's an instance of a GPU particles 3D. Now again, I will put the link into the to the documentation in the description, but there's a couple of ways you can do this. There's a GPU particles 3D and a CPU particles 3D. Now my very basic understanding is that CPU particles 3D is kind of being decommissioned, so deprecated, if you like. So you should start using GPU particles 3D. I'm not 100% clear on that, because then it says CPU particles may run better on mobile and stuff like that. So I'm not 100% sure on that. So maybe just check the documentation, check my work. But I've gone for a GPU particles 3D because apparently it's more performance on PCs, which is what I'm kind of running this for now, but maybe have a look at CPU as well. So I've got my GPU particles 3D here, and if I just quickly collapse everything, this is what it looks like when you first create this GPU particles 3D class. And what you'll see here is it's got, if I just actually expand time as well, this is basically what you get from the start. You've got this thing called emitting, and then you've got the number of particles to emit. Now I've put 1 because it's just going to be the one explosion. This amount ratio apparently lets you adjust how quickly or slowly it comes through, how quickly it emits, and you can see as well the lifetime. So this is going to last 1.5 seconds. There is this thing called a one shot. Now, as the name suggests, it means it's not going to keep looping, but let's just uncheck it and then click on emitting, and you will see that what it's doing. So what this particle is doing is it's starting at a reasonable size, getting a bit bigger, rotating at a random speed, and then fading out. So that's all this is doing. That's all this explosion is doing. Is doing those things. Okay, so in order to get this started, but I'm going to do this in a slightly wonky order. I'm going to look at the draw pass first. I might actually just turn off one shot. I might make it one shot rather. And then if you want to just fire it once, you just click emitting, and it'll do it, and then it'll stop. Right. So you can try that out. While you're changing the settings, you probably want to turn off one shot. and just keep looking at it until you're happy. And then once you're happy, just turn on one shot, and that's what you want. Unless, of course, you want it to continue to go, something like a water fountain or something. So first of all, what I want to talk to you about is the draw pass. Now, the draw pass, as it suggests, is the actual texture itself or the mesh, but this is quite powerful. There's a whole bunch of things that you can do. You can create all sorts of different... let me actually hide myself so you don't have to look at me. I can show you what they are. Yeah, so you can see there's various different things you can do here. You can have boxes, capsules, all of these things you can spawn and then fire them in various directions. The text mesh is an interesting one. So perhaps if you wanted to have a bit like the Diablo style damage meter where you see the damage that's being done, you could potentially do something like that with this here. I've gone for a quad mesh with a texture attached to it. So if we just have a look at the settings. I haven't touched any of these settings here, orientation, but I have added a material, right, which was the new standard material 3D. And if I just click on that, this should be fairly familiar to those that have added materials before, but there's a few settings that will catch you out. And it took me ages to work out, and thankfully people on Reddit were very, very helpful. You want to set the alpha. This is pretty standard. You do this anyway for other alpha-based textures. So you want to make sure that transparency is set to alpha and mix. That's absolutely fine. Otherwise, it won't. Well, it's turned off. I'll disable it now, and if I just show you what that looks like otherwise. Hang on, do that. You'll see that it's actually showing the whole billboard, which is entirely not what we want. So let's put that alpha back. So just change that to alpha. Lovely. So if we spin down, the ones that matter are the vertex color. Now you want to put this to use as albedo, and that means that you can do things like change the color, specifically change the alpha on it, so you can fade out, fade in. That is very important. It took me a while to find. To be fair, it is in the documentation. I feel like it should be a headline thing in the documentation because it took me a while to find this. If we look at the albedo, you'll guess what? That's where the texture is. All right, so I've just clicked on here, added the new texture. I think I did quick load actually. Quick load here, and then found the explosion. All right, explosion.png and just went for that. Okay, so nothing special there. The only other thing that I think we need to just talk about is the billboard. This needs to be set to particle billboard. Well, it doesn't have to be, but the particle billboard, what that does is it means it always faces you. Okay, and that, so if I do it again, let's just put this on here. Let's just play around with these settings. So if I just turn that off and that on there, you'll see that whatever I do, that is always facing towards me. And to be honest with you, this is what the kind of effect I'm after. If you were doing something that perhaps where it was firing a gun, perhaps you wouldn't want it always facing you. You may want it facing in the direction that you're looking. And this option here as well, by the way, keep scale. This is important. If you don't set that, you can't expand. You can't do this scaling effect here in the particle emitter. So you need to be able to do that as well. And I think those are the key ones that you need to do. Again, keep scale is important. Yeah, those are the key ones for that. So that's the draw pass. You can have multiple draw passes. What that means is you could have potentially different images that spawn, but the thing is they will all have the same effect. So I didn't really want that. I wanted to have this effect and then the smoke to do something slightly different. So that's the draw pass for there. The key thing that kind of says, well, here's what we're spawning, but what are we doing with it? And that can be found in this process materials here. All right, and what I've done is I've created a new particle process material. And I'm going to go through the ones that the ones that I've changed. So let me just get rid of, again, link to the description to the documentation below. But it's there's a lot to it. Okay. One important thing: the emission shape. You can choose where how it emits. Now I'm emitting from a single point, but you could do something like a sphere. And then it will actually emit from anywhere inside this sphere radius, as you can see here. Now, it's not, unless I'm absolutely, is that the points there? No, that's the box. Yeah, so I can't work out how to see the size of the sphere. So it's a bit annoying that, but I've gone for a point which is bang on the center, and this is what I want for this effect. But there's some very cool things you can do with that in terms of the way it emits. Those things there, yes. Okay, so that's the actual emission. And you'll see here also what I've done here is I've set an angle minimum and an angle maximum. So what we're saying here is that this could start in any kind of rotation. All right, so what I think it's minus 360 and 360 is correct. So it starts at a certain angle. It's basically a random one, right? So you can start it anywhere, and then as we'll see in a second, it does continue to rotate as well, just to give it a little bit more randomness. To be honest with you, let's just remove those. Does it make a lot of difference? It's always starting. It's always rotating at different speeds, so maybe it doesn't matter. Yeah, let's turn those off. Yeah, but you can see that potentially what you could do is have it spawning at a different angle each time. This direction here, because this hasn't got any speed, this isn't actually relevant. You'll see in a minute in the smoke one that it is more relevant. But the direction here is it would move along the x-axis, so here like that there, yeah. And that's the way it would go. But we're not actually we have no velocity on this. All this is doing is spawning, getting bigger, and then fading out. But if we did have any velocity, then it would move along here along the x-axis, because that's the direction we've chosen. Okay. You can see here under the animations here, I've put the velocity min and the velocity max. This is what I'm talking about in terms of the angular velocity. If I just reset those, you'll see that it just gets bigger. That's all it does. Look, it just gets bigger. That's to be expected. So let's just set that back. Was it minus 50, 50? Minus 50 and 50. So this is going to create like I say, a random rotation velocity. I think that looked good. And you can set curves on these things, right? So you can say maybe by setting a curve, you can say perhaps 0 is the more common one and stuff like that. So you've got a lot of strength here in terms of what you can actually do. If I spin over to I don't think I did orbit velocity or radial velocity. There are accelerations as well. Now the key one acceleration here is gravity. Now by default that's set to minus 9.8, which will make them drop. And I would say if you're going to do something to start with, just disable accelerations of gravity. Oh, and just one other thing as well, by the way, accelerations is new. Previously, I think gravity, acceleration, all of these weren't parented by accelerations. Accelerations is a new one with these children in there. So I think it's an attempt to kind of make it a little bit easier to see what's going on. You can minimize this one. So I've set that to 0 because I don't want gravity for this. All right. There you go. So that's done there. It's still rotating. Good. I haven't touched any of these. You can see you've got all this stuff you can do. I have changed the scale. This is between 1.5 and 1.5. So basically, set the scale to 1.5. I tried setting the scale in other places. It wasn't playing ball. So that's where I've ended up putting it. Okay. And you can see here there's a scale curve, which what this does now, if I have a look at this here, what you can see is it starts at half size, and then it goes up to 1 and stays at 1. If I just set it down to 0, hopefully it'll start. You can see it starts from nothing. Do you know what? I almost like that. The reason I don't want to keep that is because I think by starting at 0.5, it hides some of the sins that are going on behind it. So I'm going to keep that at 0.5 there, and that means that it starts at half scale, goes to 1, and we could do something like this. We could add another one and then make it drop down again. So if you watch now, it'll disappear just as it fades out. It disappears, but we'll just get rid of that. If you right click, it gets rid of them. And I haven't changed any of these. I haven't changed any of the points. These points here I think relate to the to the points here, so you don't need to touch that. Well, you can fine tune it, right? So I could say here 0.5. You'll see that. I don't know if you saw that, but that just moved up a fraction. Right, so we've got the curve going there. What else have we got here? There one more thing. It must be the color curves. Here we go. Yeah, this is the final piece that we've got. We've got this thing called an alpha curve here. So by the way, you can change the color. Let's just do that now, shall we? Let's just change it to purple or something like that. And you can see you can add a kind of purple effect. It's the same as you do with every other kind of material override and stuff like that. And you can set what's called an alpha curve. This is exactly what I was after. This is new as well, I think. And what this is saying is, if I just click on you have to add a curve texture, and if you go into here, you can see that. Again, what I've done is I've set it to be 1 all the way, and then just at the end fade out. And I think if you click on these, you've got these little dials here that let you control this kind of smoothing. Oh, look at that. What happens if you do that then? Go above 1. Oh, it sort of goes black. Look, interesting. So you can set these curves, and then you can make it a little more soft. Kind of accelerate downwards. If I click on here, perhaps we can. that one does that one. So it's this one that we're interested in. Yeah, you see, you might want maybe a sharper drop off towards the end, something like that. You know how these curves work, right? So this is the sort of power you've got, and that's fading away. It's fading away a little bit too quick for me, actually. I might just pull that back a little bit. Okay, and there we go. And that is what an explosion, that the first part of the explosion looks like. Not doing a huge amount, and it's working for me finally. The problems I faced here were around getting this to rotate, getting this to fade out, and it was because I needed to put those settings in the in the material itself to say scale over time, use albedo color for the vertex, use vertex colors, whatever it's called. Once they're in there, life becomes a lot easier, but goodness gracious me, it took me a while and some help from Reddit, so thank you for those there. So that's that one there. If I spin over now to the smoke over here, and again I'll do the same thing so you can see what's going on. I'll click on, do that, there we go. And now you'll see that we've got 4 spinning now, and it's a very, very similar emitter. Look, can you see? But it's lasting 1.5 seconds. Okay, I've done this thing called explosiveness, by the way. This is a little bit confusing to me, but basically this is how quickly these spawn. Now I would have thought that would be a pretty standard rate. If you do that, or if you do 1, they'll all spawn at the same time. You see, so bang, bang, like that. But you can set it to 0, and then they'll spawn quite 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. So a little bit slower. I found that it sort of 0.4-ish was about right, whatever. You can play with this. I couldn't see a huge amount of difference with what I picked there, but you can see that this kind of got this sort of, it does it a little bit quicker. These do have, let's go through it. I'm not going to talk about the draw passes because that's the same, all the same settings as before. If we go to the process material though, okay, right, and we'll click on the, let's go through them. So there's no animated, they're going to be an angular velocity. Again, you can see because they're spinning round. I haven't touched any of the others as far as I'm aware. Accelerations, again, I've disabled gravity. One thing I wanted to try and find was the actual position, emission shape. Here we go, sphere. So here I have actually gone for a sphere with a emission sphere radius of 0.4. Right, so you can see it's kind of from the center. It could be anywhere between, I think it's 0.4 meters, right? I know it's kind of a bit of an arbitrary number, really, but it's 0.4 meters there, and so it can spawn in different places, and that seemed to be and so it could just sort of spawn around the explosion itself. It doesn't again, it has a direction, but it doesn't, because there is actually no velocity in this actual particle shape. It's not actually going to do anything on there. I will actually, perhaps another tutorial, show how we can use the velocities and stuff like that, because that's quite often what you'll want to do. But for this one, I didn't actually do that. Yeah, this linear acceleration is what I'm talking about. So if we just turn that up, I think there you go. It's going downwards. Okay, so it must be on the y-axis, must be the direction. Okay, so let's just reset those quickly. There we go. I didn't touch any of those, and I think that's actually all I did for this. Again, it was the same detail with the scale. No, I didn't touch the scale curve, but I did touch the color curve. Again, you can see here under the color curve, I've actually started to get a little bit higher and then fade out again. Interestingly, I haven't put it all the way to 1. That's better, isn't it? There we go. Spotted a bug. I thought I had done that. Maybe that was deliberate. Maybe let's just try that. Let's just try that and just see. Because I wanted to keep the background there. So let's just play with that now. Now if we just click play and have a look. Just drag these in. We can see we forgot to turn off one shot. So let's quickly go back to that. So we turn on one shot here, and one shot in here. Otherwise, you end up with lots of explosions before it's even started. Okay. Do something like that. Okay. There we go. And we get this effect here. Now, obviously, we've created these effects, but how do we emit them? Right. So what I did was if we go back to the code script here, you'll see actually, in my enemy class, I added those 2 scenes in. Explosion and smoke, and you'll see that I've added them to the path follow 3D. Guess what? Because of the usual complaints, I've added them there because that's at the point where the actual enemy is going to be exploding. And then what I do in the code here is I've said $path3D smoke.emitting equals true, and the same for the explosion. Now I did have a problem here. I did hit a problem. I couldn't work out why the smoke was appearing behind the explosion. It was getting me. I still don't know the answer now. Let me show you how I fixed it. If I go to the smoke here, if we go to the, let me find it. Is it here or is it in the actual smoke itself? Hang on. Here it is. Sorry, apologies. Right, so it's under the. If you go to the GPU particles here, you've got this sorting here of 0.5. Let me just set that to 0, which is the default. And if I press play now, let's just see if. No, my luck, it'll work now. But let's just see. Hang on. If I just bring these in here, I like a nice straight one like that. There we go. So, yeah, can you see? So the smoke has gone behind. Now I can't seem to find a way to make it so that it does it in the correct order. I've seen this thing saying that the index should mean that the particle that emits second appears in front of the other one, but it never does. It never does. So what I did was this seemed to work for me. I suspect like 0.1 will even work. Let's just try it. It's saying what the offset between the two values is, and I think that's fine. Let's just try that. I think that's going to be fine. No, it doesn't, does it? Okay, let's just try 0.5 again. Squeeze it in the gap there. There, now it's okay. So if anybody knows the answer to that, I would really appreciate it. But I don't quite know why the smoke was appearing behind the explosion. I've tried, obviously I've tried the obvious stuff of switching these round. I've tried the obvious of making the emitting calls different. Who knows? The one thing I haven't done, by the way, is putting a wait here for these to finish. The reason for that is these finish before the explosion audio finishes. I can see maybe later on, maybe I should put in a wait for these to finish as well, just in case. But for now, because the audio takes a lot longer than the two emissions to complete, I don't have to worry too much about that. So that is the particle emitter that I have created, and I hope that made some sense to you. Apologies if it didn't. Please put something in the comments below. As you can see, I've kind of blundered my way through that. There's definitely a lot for me to learn in the area of particle physics, particle shapes, particle emitters, that I will endeavour to keep going at that, because I think there's a lot can be done with GPU particles in Godot. But yeah, I'm still definitely learning. Hope you found it useful. As always, if you did enjoy, please be sure to pop a like down. A subscribe would be amazing, and a comment is also amazing. I do try and respond to everybody's comments, so I will leave it there. There is some more tidy up I want to do, particularly around the fact that I've noticed a small bug, potential bug in the code, and I will talk about that next time. But for now, I think we're going to call it, because I think your brain's already exploding from what I've already tried to explain. So until next time, folks, have a good one. Shark out.